And now I have the privilege and honor of introducing our keynote speaker. He's performed on many prestigious stages, including The Tonight Show, Saturday Night Live, Madison Square Garden, and the White House. Was that not awesome? I'm telling you, I've been coming to NCE for over 15 years. I think that was the best keynote we've ever had. I'm so fired up. And Ravi, just so you know, I've been telling these folks for the last year and a half, we will change the world working together. So I'm super excited. Thank you so much.
Change is something that gets me really excited. But I like to think of it as pivoting. Because if we pivot rather than just simply change everything, those small shifts that we make huge changes in the world. We have to be culturally competent. We have to teach students to be culturally competent so they can be successful in a global world. And what does that mean? It means we have to identify our own implicit biases. It means we have to develop empathy for others as well. And I believe that the point of it all is ultimately to purposefully work towards world peace. That's a big picture. That's a big task. But if we pivot, small shifts, make big changes in the world, and maybe world peace actually becomes possible. I stepped out of my comfort zone, and I just started making cold calls to magazines, saying, do you want to interview me? You know? I got a great story. And they all said no. They weren't really interested. Almost all of them said no. But what did I have to lose? It was the same thing that I asked, that day when I called the executive from Mercury Records. I just said, what do I have to lose? I'm going to call them all, and I'm going to see. Well, what did happen is one magazine said to me, they responded, they said, well, have you ever written before? And I said, yes. I had never written before, but I said, yes. And they said, well, would you be interested in writing your story? We think it'd be more interesting if you tell your story. So I said, sure, and they paid me to do it. So I said, okay, I'll do that. And I really read everything I could. There wasn't much Googling going on in those days. But I called people who were writers, and I said, tell me what to do. How do you write for a magazine? What is, mentor me. Well, that one article turned into years of columns in multiple magazines. For over a decade, I wrote many magazine columns in the music industry, trying to help others build their businesses in the age of the internet, in the age when the entire industry had been turned upside down. And all of those magazine articles then turned into a book deal. And Simon & Schuster published my first book. And that's one of the things you learn as a pilot, is you make a decision and then you put into all your energy into making it right. Right? We all get caught up in decision making. We all try to figure out, well, what's the best decision? What's the right decision? We waste and lose a lot of time. But I found that I can do a lot more in life if I just make a decision and then put my energy into making it right. Data triangulation, critical thinking. Data triangulation. In the cockpit of an airplane, we're always looking at 3 or more instruments in order to assess what's going on with our aircraft. You never look at one. You look at 3 or more. Can you imagine if we taught data triangulation in everything that we do? What would happen? There would be no such thing as fake news. Think about it. Because everybody would be triangulating data. They'd be consulting 3 sources in order to make a decision. There'd be no fake news. There'd be no radicalism. When it comes to freedom, for the boomers, it was autonomy. That's what freedom meant. But for the millennials, it's inclusivity. Inclusivity is freedom for this generation. On power, power was vertical, a pyramid. One guy at the top, lots of people working underneath. Today, it's lateral. It's a network, because your network is your net worth today. It's social, and it's lateral. And capital. Capital used to be financial, but today it's social. Let's talk about politics. Nothing brings a crowd together like a good conversation of politics. Don't you think? I mean, that's really a way to share the love and to realize how much we all agree on everything. No, but it's true, we have to talk about it, especially I think in education. We have to talk about the tough issues. We have to be able to have civil discourse, lead by example, so that other people can and students can have civil discourse. But I have to be careful, so I'm not going to talk about anything sensitive. I just want to talk about Trump, the border wall, and immigration. Is that okay? The first person to live to 150 has already been born. Think about that. 150. That means that our job in 12 years, 14 years, 16 years, 20 years, is to equip students with everything they need to know to be productive for 100 years. Tough. Gets back to the lifelong learning. That's the one job, is to make sure that the students are curious, that the students triangulate their data, and that the students identify their own talents and their own strengths and are self-directed learners, because that's the only way to constantly stay relevant and not become redundant. To pivot. Knowledge is being decentralized. That's one of the amazing things. All of those facts, figures, and formulas are now in the palm of our hands. We don't need to deliver them anymore. We just have to make students curious enough to go find them, critically think in order to evaluate them. But all of that, knowledge has been decentralized. And we think kids are looking at their phones, but they're not. They're looking through their phones. Because the world is on the other side of those phones. And that means that knowledge has not only been decentralized, it has been democratized. Knowledge has been democratized. As long as we can have network neutrality, every kid in the world has equal access to an abundance of knowledge. Even in the poorest countries of the world where kids never had a personal computer, they all have a Samsung phone. So I'm sitting in this meeting with the ambassador in his home in Moscow, and I'm thinking, all right, this is a pretty big moment. What can I do to make sure that it's not just a moment? How can I turn this into something? And I thought about something my great uncle said. He said, life is like a game of cards. The hand you are dealt is determinism, but the way you play it is free will. I had never played the family card up to this point, but now seemed like a really good time to do it. So I told the ambassador about my great uncle and Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi and all of this, and he was moderately impressed and thought it was interesting. But what was so interesting to me was what happened the next day. The next day, my phone rang, and it was the Indian embassy asking me if I could come over and meet Ambassador Raghavan. So I said, of course. And I went over there. He couldn't have been nicer. We had a wonderful conversation. And what I found for the next year, wherever I was going, I was meeting with diplomats of the world's two greatest democracies. I mean, it was remarkable. I'm sitting in these offices, having conversations about global warming and North Korea and other stuff, and I'm thinking, do they know I'm the guitar player from Hanson? I mean, don't let this secret out, because nobody's going to ask me to come. Privilege, in my opinion, is a tool. It's one of the tools in the toolbox. And I don't want somebody to make me feel guilty for having it, but I want somebody to inspire me to use it for something good. And those students that we have, we need to inspire them to do something good. These 4 privileged little kids, they grew up to do some pretty great things. That's the power. Because leadership is truly empowering those below you to rise above you. That's what leadership is. The whole thing ended with the kids in India beatboxing and the girls in Los Angeles dancing in real time. I couldn't believe it. I didn't do anything other than make it possible. They did it. They did it by themselves, organically fell in love with each other through global interaction using basic technology that we all have in our pockets right now. Think about that. Think about that. I did a press conference afterwards, and the only thing I could think of was, if we could do this with young Israelis and young Palestinians so that they could bond naturally before we teach them how to hate each other, you know what? Then world peace is possible. There is a guitar over there, actually. My old friend, don't you know, you can run, you can hide, but you keep going inside, so turn around.
I want to introduce you to my new best friend, Tom Thompson.
All right, and what did you just tell me?
So what I said was what I repeated to the folks here, my good friends, is that I've been to so many veterinary conventions and Humane Society conventions and school board conventions, national and statewide. And we've seen Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, General Swartkoff, et al. And honest to goodness, your delivery is the best I've ever heard. There's different contents that everybody delivers, but the way that you weave things back and forth and brought it back to us humans was phenomenal.
Wow, thank you so much. That really means a lot to me.
Well, I'm so glad to hear that, and just having you come to our table today, I think meant a lot to all of us too, because we shared a lot of stories already in about 5 minutes.
But to me, that's the fun. Meeting my audience, I learn from you guys as much as I hope you learn from me, and that's really part of it.
And I would say that you made that very clear at the beginning of your content today, that you get all that as well, and that you learn from it, and you like to make sure that you keep the constant stream of conversation beyond the conversation here today. So.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you singing on tape.
You're what? Hug? Will you sign my shirt?
Thank you very much.